with a B-12 unit built by Allison. Here comes the H-34. Low over the beach, out over the water there. What an incredible old helicopter it is. It is just beautifully restored. As you see now, the P-51 Mustang with a this is flying by right now. Flag over there, so we can all of you on this Memorial Day. That is the Arrow L-39 Albatross, and owned by the Soviet bloc as a trainer to have them here today. The American Air Power Museum at Republic Airport, they're being sponsored this morning by the Blumenfeld Development Group and Stop and Shop Supermarkets. Coming through the North American T-6 coming by right now. 600 horsepower engine by Pratt & Whitney. See that? Looks like you've got 3 of them in down. Now, once more the Corsair, but look out over the water to the sea from the Yankee Air Museum. The B-17. Their appearance from the Yankee Air Museum, from Blumenfeld Development Group, and they've become an annual visitor to the show. If you want to offer a tax-deductible donation to get aboard overhead, head over to the American Air Power Museum of Republic That's a lot of money, but it is 11 flyable B-17 anywhere in the world. Now that sounds pretty good. Remember that over 12,700 today the B-17 with a 7 engine in it. The H-30 and put in storage out there in the desert. Actually parted it out. Now in its racetrack formation, following the big B-17, the Yankee Lady from the Yankee Air Museum. That TBM Avenger is the same type of airplane that was flown by a teenager during World War II. Later became President of the United States, George Herbert Walker Bush. President Bush, 41. The L-39 Arrow in the wing lag, Pennsylvania, has given a huge sight as it goes by. You see an airplane, that L-39, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, many of them became available on the surplus market, and a bunch of Americans who had a lot of money were able to purchase them at a very reasonable price. High and overhead from the show center, the bent-wing bird, the F-4 Corsair, built by Hawk with a 2,000 horsepower radial piston engine. Let me explain the radial piston engine to you. In our cars, we have either a straight 4 or a V6 or a V8 or an opposing 6 or opposing 4. Well, the B-17 you see here, the T6s, the F-4U Corsair, all had radial engines, and that meant that their pistons were arranged in a circle around a central propeller shaft, and all the power strokes from the pistons went right to the middle of that circle, right hooked onto the crankshaft and turned that propeller. The B-17 bomber, responsible for pounding German targets. And interestingly, early in the war, up through about 1943, the B-17s that were taking off by the hundreds, literally, from bases in England, would gather in the skies over the English Channel and then fly south and west to their targets, or Romania, or wherever it happened to be. They were very, very slow compared to the German fighters. They cruised at somewhere around 165 miles per hour, and they carried typically a bomb load somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 to 6,000 pounds. To get to the targets, even with the highest technology bomb sights, the northern bomb sights, B-17 bombers. It took literally hundreds to pound the targets in Germany to try to knock out the German industrial base, or in Romania, or wherever the Germans had factories under their control. They were really at the mercy of the German fighters because the American fighters, the bombers, all the way into their targets. Even with 10 machine guns aboard these B-17 bombers, they were unable to, in many cases, defend themselves. And the attrition rate, the loss rate early in those daylight bombing raids during 1943 was extremely, extremely high. So, General Curtis LeMay devised a couple of, you can see, by the way, the B-17 with the bomb bay doors open right now. General Curtis LeMay did something very, very important. He changed the formation of the bombers. It made it much more difficult because they flew much more close together with three groups of 6 bombers together that helped concentrate their firepower on the oncoming Luftwaffe fighters. Then, as we see the Mustang go by here, a very interesting development took place. The paper drop tank was developed. In other words, a very, very heavy paper mache type substance was used, and it was very lightweight, but it could carry enough extra fuel that the B-51s and the B-47s and the B-38 Lightnings could then accompany the bombers to their targets and back all the way. They were known as the little friends. The bombers were known as the big friends. And those two developments, the box formation that General Curtis LeMay developed, plus those paper drop tanks, extended significantly the range of the fighters, made it possible for the survivability of the B-17s to be greatly increased. Once again, we see the Marine Helicopter Squadron, 361 Veterans Association helicopter. We'll see more of the Sikorsky heavy lifters later on today. That was one of the first with about a 1,400 horsepower engine, a radial engine right in the nose with a transmission, with a drive shaft and transmission right up to the top. And the P-40 Warhawk. Boy, what a fantastic airplane, and what wonderful airplanes we're seeing. Dan Damio is one of the pilots of one of these airplanes today. I don't know which airplane he's flying, but we want to say a great big thank you. And I hope you'll join me as we say thanks to the men and women who have lovingly given of their time to keep these airplanes flyable. How about a nice round of applause for the folks from the American Airpower Museum and also the Yankee Air Museum. A number of visiting historic aircraft during the season. Within the last 2 years, they've welcomed 2 big birds, including a C-121 Constellation and the B-29 Superfortress. Of all the B-29s built, over 8,800 of them, only one in the world remains flyable, and even that right now has some airframe difficulties and is not flyable. Every Labor Day, the B-17 and the B-24 will make their annual appearances, and that event is made possible through the efforts of Stop and Shop. We're proud to honor our veterans through their Flight of Aces program. Circle June 15th if you want to see 2 Grumman F-14 Tomcats on final at the American Airpower Museum over at Republic Airport. 2 of those Grumman Tomcats will make a victory lap over Long Island before retiring. They will land for a day and be open for inspection on the museum ramp. Now, I say that, and that's a big deal. Here's why. If you saw the movie Top Gun, made it 20 years ago, actually 21 years ago, 1985, starring Tom Cruise, the aircraft they used out at Miramar, then Naval Air Station Miramar, as part of the Top Gun program, was the Grumman F-14 Tomcat. Big things here on Long Island, and many of the Tomcats carried out here. Now, the Tomcat, after first flying in 1972, was about to see the end of its service life. The last Navy has returned from the fleet, and they will be retired. And their last flight will be in September at the Naval Air Station Oceana Airshow. So we're going to see 2 of them right here at Republic Airport, June 15th. It will be a big day in the aircraft memory books as you get to see those big F-14 Tomcats. There again, the B-17, the TBM Avenger, a crew of 3 flown by President George Bush 41 when he was literally a teenager. Many folks who flew in World War II would go into battle with as few as 200 hours of flight time. They graduated up from the primary trainers, the PT-17s and the PT-19s. They would then go to the basic trainers, the BT-13, like the Vultee Vibrator, and then, or the Vultee Valiant, as it was officially called, but the pilots who flew them called it the Vultee Vibrator, and then they would graduate to the AT-6, coming by us here right now at Show Center. Over 15,000 of these were made, as I mentioned, by 30 Allied nations during World War II. With a 600 horsepower Pratt & Whitney radio engine, it was the advanced trainer that all the pilots would fly, and they would then go on to fight in the AT-6. My father-in-law flew those as an instructor during World War II and it is. So important was the T-6 and so rugged was the T-6 that after World War II, when most of them had been retired, they were pressed, some were pressed back into service, refitted with white phosphorus rockets and some machine guns. They were renamed T-6Gs. And they flew what were known over the skies of Korea mosquito missions. They were the first forward air controller aircraft during the jet era. The jets moved so fast that they couldn't always spot the targets. So very flying mosquito missions would fly low and slow over the Korean battlefield area and mark the targets with those white phosphorus rockets. They call them Willie Pete's. WP, white phosphorus rockets. So they get a lot of white smoke at the target, they call in the jets, and the jets could put their bombs then on target. Yes, I should say the TBM and TBF Avenger, the Navy had a different way of designating its aircraft, and they always included the manufacturer by one letter in the designation of the plane. The TB-10 was by General Motors. They built most of them, although it was designed by Grumman, and that was the TBF Avenger. It had a crew of 3 to carry a lot of bombs, or it could carry torpedoes. The B-54 Mustang, 6 50 caliber machine guns aboard. Jaeger, the first man to break the speed of sound. He was for the 357th Fighter Group. Look at that Mustang climb now as it pulls, the pilot pulls back on the stick, throws it to the right, and banks around to the right. A top speed of about 425 miles an hour, and it had a 1,425 horsepower V12 engine in it, designed by Rolls-Royce and built under license in the United States by the Packard Motor Car Company. If you're a little young to remember what a Packard was, ask somebody a little bit older than you. They may tell you that Packard was a wonderful car, but like so many companies during the war, they diverted from their primary businesses to support the war effort, doing whatever they could to help the soldiers, the sailors, and the Marines all over the world in the war effort. As the B-17 goes by, we see those 4 big radial engines, and what a wonderful purring sound that it makes. Interestingly, it's not the noisiest of the bombers. The smaller bomber, a medium bomber built by North America, the B-25 Mitchell, is way noisier than the B-17. And I didn't know why several years ago, and I asked one of the pilots, why is that one so much noisier? A 2-engine bomber is so much noisier than a 4-engine bomber. But short exhaust stack, so, there's no muffler on it. Once again, the T-6 coming by Show Center, several of them, and the P-51 Mustang coming through it over 250. During World War II, these airplanes flew with gasoline that is a little more potent than what we have in our cars. We fly with 93, 95, or 97 octane gas. Airplanes today typically fly with 100 octane low lead gasoline. Well, back in World War II, they were 100 octane fuel. Boy, I tell you, they ran hot in those hands. We sure want to thank some additional folks for helping keep these planes of the American Air Power Museum at Republic Airport in the air. They include Governor George Pataki and the Republic Airport Management and its airport. Thanks to those folks. Very, very important. And today, people are flying thanks to the Best Paid Federal Credit Union and the Blumenfeld Development Group, as well as Stop and Shop. Get a great chance to hear these airplanes. The H-34 is so distinguished. The L-39 Albatross getting ready to head on out, giving a wing wag. Checking out the Marine Helicopter Squadron 361 Veterans Association Incorporated helicopter. They're always looking for support. Check them out at www.34restoration.org. They've got an education program, and you can check it out on the web. Came back from Vietnam full of bullet holes, but still flyable. And even he's doing a little salute for you here at Jones Beach. The pilot of a helicopter, very, very difficult job. He's got both his hands busy. One on a stick in the center called a cyclic, one on a stick by his left hip called the collective, and then both his feet are busy.